Hi, I'm Allison Willingham with the Midlands Anchor. I'm here with the president and founder of Heroes in Blue, Kassy Alia. Kassy, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm all right. So we've been having some conversations lately about a lot of different things. I know there's a pretty heavy anniversary coming up for you, and you're probably reflecting a lot about things that are going on locally and nationally. So you want to tell me a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, I have to be honest. Leading up into this weekend, I'd feel sad regardless. I think it is and will continue to be an incredibly painful part of my life and a really grim anniversary. But I feel especially sad given what's happening in our nation right now regarding there's so much news right now around taking a knee during the national anthem by many, especially our athletes in the country. And it just makes me so sad that I would have hoped 2 years later we'd look back on our country and we'd see more unity and less divisiveness, but the divisiveness is only grows greater and greater and stronger, and I know they're different issues, like why I chose to start Heroes in Blue, why I chose to stand out and try to promote law enforcement and community relationships. It's different, but at the same time, I have empathy for how the discussion is going around the taking the knee, that it's the way that it's going is it's saying who's right versus wrong, and if you empathize with those who are taking a knee, you're labeled as unpatriotic. And I have to tell you, I consider myself a pretty strong patriot. I love my country and I proudly stand with our national anthem, and also I have deep empathy and understanding for the continued dramatic and painful impact of institutional racism in our country. And I think that rather than trying to fight for who's right or wrong in this situation, we should be doing a lot more listening on why people feel compelled to take a knee and better understand that pain so we can think about how we work together to address it together moving forward.
Very well stated. How do you feel like a national issue like that, how does that affect local law enforcement officers? Do they feel that kind of tension? Does that impact them day to day?
Well, I think, first of all, something that just even the way that you frame that is interesting, in that something that I've been trying to be pretty vocal and fighting against is that it seems like there's an us versus them in the debate between police issues and issues pertaining to racial and ethnic minorities in our community, and that if you're pro-law enforcement, you're anti-civil rights, or vice versa. And I think that the issue related to taking a knee, I think that's separate, like that they're related, but we need to by itself call out, not with anything else in front of us, that institutional racism and racism continues to exist in our country. That is true.
Yes.
And also, it is true that the hate and the pain experienced by law enforcement continues to exist. We saw it with St. Louis, the stories with the rioters. You heard about how they said horrific things to law enforcement in the area. And I think what we need to do is we need to understand that those things are real and they exist. And those pain, understand where the pain is coming from, have awareness of that and empathy for that experience of pain. And then in understanding that, look for the ways that we can work together over a common ground and see these issues not as so separate. It was interesting. We did a recent survey over the summer with law enforcement throughout the state of South Carolina. And out of our 69 respondents, 94% indicated that they agreed or strongly agreed that community policing was very important to their work, but only 29% felt that they had the resources that they needed to actually help those who were in need. And so I bring that up because I think that when we're thinking about these issues and how we can come together, if we look for law enforcement or other community organizations as supports for addressing social issues, I think we're going to make a lot more headway. What if we provided law enforcement with more supports for community outreach? Would we see a difference in issues that drive racism or inequalities in our country? What if we actually saw our efforts as more aligned than separate? Would we see more momentum? Rather than trying to focus on who's right and who's wrong, if we had empathy and actually looked for the solutions in the places where we can drive change, right, I think we'd see a lot more movement. And I wish that we would have seen more 2 years down, since Greg died. And I think it just it breaks my heart, and it fuels me for why the work that we're doing is so critically important and that we can't stop.
Yeah. So it seems like there's conversations that need to be had with both sides before progress can be made.
I think it's conversations with people and about what they're experiencing, and not labeling them as different sides, but appreciating what the human experience for different people, and having understanding. And then I think, I've spent a lot of times, like when Greg first died, it was 3 a.m. after he died that I called. I said that Greg was a hero and many cops are too, and I proposed using the hashtag Heroes in Blue as a way to bring awareness to those positive stories. And that continues to be a critical part of our mission. However, when we started moving forward and like past in the weeks following and the months following his death, it's like, I really care about making a real difference, and there's got to be more than just sharing stories. So I spent a lot of time listening and talking to people, and talking to all different people. I talked to law enforcement officers, I've talked to community leaders, I've talked to people who hate law enforcement, I've talked to a lot of different people, and in that, treating each person as a person and as a human, and hearing their experience without trying to put my lens on what I think is right and wrong. And through that, I've just seen over and over again that there are so many ways that our efforts and our goals intersect, and I see so many opportunities for us to acknowledge what the problem is and come together over solutions together.
Right, and not be further divisive.
Yeah.
And I like that you said it shouldn't be sides.
There aren't sides. And one of the things, so I'm planning one of the big events we have coming up. So we have 2. We have this Friday is our Night of Honor Gala, which is both a benefit for Heroes in Blue, so it will help us in, like I said, providing resources to police officers, so they have the resources they need to feel like they're continuing to make a positive impact, which is why they got into this work in the first place.
Right.
So it's a benefit, and also it's a celebration. So I can talk more about why that celebration matters. But importantly, on the day after, on that September 30th, I think that I'm calling, it's going to be a rally for compassion in action. So the governor will actually declare it a statewide day for compassion in action. And in that, in my speech, one of the things I plan to reflect on is the process of the sentencing of the man who killed my husband, Jarvis Hall, and how finding empathy and thinking about him as a little boy made it so clear to me that what if we could have helped him sooner? Would we have found a man who was struggling? Would we have been able to help him before it got too late, before he was put in that, was in that position of violence? Would my husband still be alive, and would he not be in prison? And so if we saw our issues as more the same and less divisive, I think that we'd make a bigger impact together.
Okay. So let's go back to talking about what resources do law enforcement officers need right now in the community, or what kind of supports from the community do they need that they're not getting?
So, I think that what we're finding in our survey illuminated a lot of the challenges. So one of the things is we do hear that, police come across people who are experiencing some of the worst results of the disparities that exist, hunger, homelessness, poverty, crime, violence, mental illness. They come across these things all the time, and often they go out of their own way, out of their own pocket to help those who are in need. And it's amazing what they do, and we want to help more of that to happen. So what we've been working with Heroes in Blue, and we're going to continue to do more of, is look at what their needs are and find out ways that we can link with different community organizations to make a difference. So our partnership with Harvest Hope, which came through Midlands Anchor, through Mary Louise, who's on the board as well. It was our partnership to help provide law enforcement with boxes of non-perishable food that they could then give to people who were hungry. A really critical need that I want to explore more following our events this week is homelessness and mental health. Police come across those who are homeless or experience mental health over and over again, and they go out of their way to give them food, water bottles, hotel rooms, whatever they can do to help. And they are already partnering with different homeless organizations, and we want to see how can we provide supports to better help those who are experiencing homelessness, and also help police so that they feel that they have the resources to intervene when someone's struggling. So those are some examples, and I could keep going. I could keep going there a lot.
Yeah. So essentially linking police officers with service provision and community resources, and kind of strengthening that relationship between them.
Well, and importantly, it's not seeing police as it's building on law enforcement strengths. So
Right.
I remember I had a conversation with Greg, and I'm a psychologist. I'm working on finishing my doctorate in clinical community psychology. And I remember having a conversation with Greg, and I was like, okay, like, why don't police do this? And they could do that. And like had all these ideas. And he was like, Kassy, like, you're the psychologist and I'm the police officer. And I think we need to remember the essential role that law enforcement plays in our community. Without law enforcement, without law and order, like, we'd be a disaster,
Right.
you know? And so what they do is critically important. And also, they're people who got into this job because they care about people. Like, most, if not, like, 99% of them, I would guess, and most of them, I don't know the percentage, got into this because they care. And can you imagine seeing people who are in pain every day? I heard a story from an officer who's involved in our Greg's Groceries initiative, and he told me how he was so excited to share about a box that they had delivered of the Greg's Groceries to someone who was in need. And it was coming off the heels of a case where a toddler and her father had just been killed. And to be able to have a resource there to see some light and hope in this world amidst so much pain, I think that helps people's hearts
Right.
to be able to be given that resource. So.
Right.
So it's building on their strengths to give them more resources to help them do what they got into it in the first place as best they can.
Right. So tell me more about the Knights of Honor Gala on
Yes.
Friday.
Okay, so it is a benefit, like I said, for Heroes in Blue, and will support our mission of bridging police and community relationships. And I shared a little bit about what we do there. It's also a celebration. So part of our mission is we believe that the more we celebrate good acts, good deeds, compassion, the more that those will spread. The more we celebrate, the more good acts will happen.
Right.
And so, and we also very much believe in emphasizing and reinforcing both the ways that law enforcement are doing great things every day, and also how they work with citizens and citizens work with them to make a difference. So the really amazing part of this evening is that we'll actually be knighting, like Knight. So it's a
Right.
medieval celebration.
Right.
And this year we're going to have like 4 rows of knighting. It's going to be over the top, and I love every second of it.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to be knighting 17 law enforcement and citizen heroes who have been nominated for their outstanding acts of compassion and kindness to their community.
That's awesome. Can
Yeah.
you give examples of some of the things
Oh my
they've done?
gosh, they're so awesome. Okay, so let me think about one of. I had this one powerful conversation. I had a lot of powerful conversations, but I talked with Deputy Darlene Crawford out of Richland County, and oh my gosh, her story blew me away. I mean, so she grew up in a very like impoverished area in the ghettos of Miami, and initially she wasn't even sure she was going to get into law enforcement. She wanted to be a firefighter actually initially, and she thinks it's because her name was Bahama Mama, and she was a calypso dancer who taught her how to do fire dancing. So she was like, maybe that's why I want to be a firefighter, which is so cool. Anyway, so she got into law enforcement in Miami, ended up working undercover in narcotics, prostitution, I mean everything on the streets. Long time. She's been in 25 years, and I think she said maybe 17 years Miami, then went to Greenville, and now she's at Richland County as a school resource officer. And the way that she described was so powerful when she was sharing how she takes that extra second when she sees people who are responding in a negative way, and takes that second to say, like, why are they and how can I help them? And she said that people, she can get criticized saying that could puts her life at risk, and she was like, but I know, yes it can, but I've been able to help people because I take that extra second. Now she's a school resource officer. She saved 2 children, exact same day, exactly a year apart, almost the exact same time of day. She said her hair was looking the same, her outfit, she was uniform,
Right.
but she said it was eerie just how exactly she saved them both from choking incidents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So she's amazing. I talked to this other officer with the South Carolina Highway Patrol, Captain Owens. He one day, so he got in conversation with someone. He had met him a year before, and then I didn't really meet him, and he met this minister who just inspired him. One thing led to another, and he and his wife and his 2 boys, they sold all their belongings, moved into this like camp for boys, and they have helped 17 boys who have been at risk and struggling reconnect, and that's what he does in his spare time. Another officer, Sergeant Ricardo Perry out of Hanahan, which is cool. I didn't know about Hanahan before, but now he's amazing, and like you can see from his comments how loved he is.
Yeah.
He's just blowing up. And you could talk to him and you like feel his smile, through the phone. It's pretty incredible. But he started a club for boys at their school, and just like the passion for compassion that you see in these officers it gives me chills.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. You're doing a lot of really great recognition work with law enforcement. What about next Saturday? What's going on then?
Yes. So, the date of September 30th is something that is heavy on my heart every day of the year. I mean, it has been for the last almost 2 years now. And over like the months leading up to it, I just felt compelled, like I need to do something in memory of the 2-year anniversary. And I wasn't sure what it was, but the opportunity presented itself to say that we needed to call for more, what I'm saying, compassion in action. So I think that in our pain and in our desire to help each other, sometimes we see the only avenue is to condemn hateful voices, and that's true. We need to condemn hate, but importantly, we need to be brave enough to have compassion. And what I define by that is I think we need to put ourselves, think, what makes me most uncomfortable? Am I uncomfortable with law enforcement? Am I uncomfortable with racial issues? Am I uncomfortable with people who experience disabilities? Or, there are all these different, there's a diversity of people in our world, and what are the things that make me uncomfortable, and how can I reach out to someone who's different from me and really listen to them, really get to know them, and so I can put myself in their shoes. And then importantly, understand those who are suffering and who are in need, and see their issues as my own and help them. So get involved in volunteering. And I think we need to do more celebrating. As much as we do need to condemn hate, we 10 times more need to celebrate good and magnify voices of love to say, this is what happens when we love each other. This is what change looks like when we work together. And we need to show and model that unity and that love really is so important for driving change. So I was invited to speak with the governor recently, and he was really wonderful. He said, Kassy, anything we can do to help. And so we talked about having this statewide call for compassion in action. And so the governor will give some introductory remarks and welcome the group on September 30th. Then we have Chief Kevin Cornett will speak, and he has a really powerful story of pain, but also resilience and strength, and I want to hear his story. And then Pastor Juan Ibarra, who's on our board and also is a pastor in a Latino community, and himself comes from a pretty powerful story and background. So these two different, what people may see as divergent views, and really seeing how they intersect together. And then I'll speak, and I'm primarily going to be reflecting on my experience with the sentencing and how empathy helped me find healing and what that means for me for driving change forward. After the speaking, we're going to have different community organizations at the State House where people can engage with compassion and action right on the spot. So some of the groups that we have, so Richland County Sheriff's Department's on board, the South Carolina Torch Run, which they've raised like millions of dollars, incredible amounts of money for Special Olympics. Midlands Fatherhood Coalition, Able, South Carolina, Homeless No More, St. Lawrence Place. We're going to have Pasos, Harvest Hope. The list, we have like all these really incredible organizations that represent a diversity, because my hope is that you can come to this event and find something that you don't know that much about, and some opportunity to get involved, and so that we are not waiting for another tragedy to happen to take action with love and compassion in our hearts.
That's great. It seems like it's a step not just for the governor and for Heroes in Blue, and then also for the community members that come to get them connected and more aware and understanding, but also connecting all those organizations more with law enforcement and like that call to action that you're making. Well, it'll reach so many different groups. Well,
I just feel so strongly that yes, I have a unique experience with the loss of my husband, and I know firsthand how amazing so many in our South Carolina law enforcement are, and nationwide. And I also know that I can't call for empathy for just one group without acknowledging the experiences of others. And it is only when we have empathy for all, it is only when we're willing to step out of our comfort zones to see each other's pain as our own, that we're actually going to see change happen.
Yeah. You've been on an incredible personal and professional journey the last couple of years. Is compassion, would you say that's the biggest thing that you've learned over the last couple of years?
It's the biggest thing that I've learned. I think one of the things that I've had a lot of painful growth this summer. The sentencing with some pretty critical national events. I mean, Charlottesville obviously is a huge one. Philando Castile verdict. I mean, there are a lot of pretty intense, critical events that have happened. And I think what I've come to is that loving others is not divisive. Having compassion for people is not divisive. Having empathy is not it's not a political issue, you know, and that we need to find the strength in our hearts and be brave enough to come together. And it really takes bravery to condemn hate, and I think it takes even more strength to not only know that hate exists, but to fight for coming together.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you for so much for sharing all that you've been through and all of your hopes and the great work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks for spending the time talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.